Praggnanandhaa is back on the chessboard, and this time he's playing at the Spanish Team Championship for Team Solvay. And he has started off with a completely amazing play. He has won two games, and I'm going to show you both these games. Let's first have a look at Pragg here. He is playing in his team uniform there. This is his team, a very strong team of Solvay. And Pragg started off with two wins against two very strong players, Cheparinov and Vitiugov, which meant that it propelled him from 2-7 to 2-7-3-6. And he jumped over MVL, Grishchuk, Lei Kwong Liam, Mamedyarov. At this stage, you are going to go ahead of some amazing chess players, some legendary players. So Pragg is now world number 16. Later on in the tournament, he did draw two more games. So now if you see, he's still at 16, but his rating dropped down a bit by a couple of points. So it's 2-7-3-4 right now. But it's very interesting to note that from world number 1 Magnus to world number 27 Nodirbek, no one is active right now and only Pragg is playing, which is quite interesting to see. This is Pragg against Cheparinov. Cheparinov, known as a very, very great opening theoretician and also had helped Topalov in his world championship matches. Very strong player overall from Bulgaria. So let's have a look at how Pragg managed to outwit him and also Vitiugov, who is now the England number one. He's changed his federations to England. Okay, so let's go, and I'm going to ask you a few questions during the game, so be ready for that. E4 by Pragg, C5 by Cheparinov, and the opening is not particularly interesting as such. Pragg takes with the queen, knight c6, queen moves back, g6, bishop c4, bishop g7, h3, castles both sides, castle, queen c7, a4. And I think Pragg made a very conscious decision to avoid opening theory to just get a playable position. a6, queen went back, and then he developed his bishop, b6, rook d1, bishop f4. And in this position, black made a very typical move, knight e5. Pragg dropped his bishop back, rook came here, and now he took. And here he could have taken back with the bishop, which looked pretty okay to trade, but he took with the pawn. And this is a very common structure that we see often in the Sicilian here, where black has these doubled pawns and white has a majority, and white could definitely claim a small advantage here for the very simple reason that it's very difficult for black to get his majority rolling, while white majority is pretty easy to roll. So bishop c4 played by Pragg, attacking a6, and then he played his bishop back to d3, defending e4 and putting pressure here. So rook d4, bishop e3, rook d6, rook to d1, knight d7, f3, knight c5, and now he brought his bishop here. And so the game was maybe around equal, slightly better, but then at some point Pragg lost his sense of danger, which was at this moment where he played the move queen d2. And here's my first question: what should black play here? Black to move. Yeah, the move is, I mean, you could just keep the position as it is, move your knight back or queen back, but Cheparinov was very alert and he found this move, and I'm sure Pragg was not happy with it, because if he takes here, then the bishop is hanging. But Pragg had this move bishop takes e6 in mind, and his point is if you take back, then after b takes a4, he still keeps an advantage. The black king has got a bit weakened. Okay, so he went back with the knight and Pragg came here, a5, knight d3. They traded the knights, they traded the bishops, and now it was a key moment actually. It was the 40th move, and here, Pragg's idea is to play c4, and he's trying to bank on the advantage that these two pawns are on the same color as his bishop and black's bishop is passive. So a very natural move for Cheparinov is to play b5, but because this was the 40th move, it's a little tricky, because firstly Pragg, okay, taking here is completely fine for black, no problems, but you could play c4, and then the position does get very sharp, like take a4. And I think what Cheparinov didn't want to do is calculate so much on the 40th move, so he just played his bishop. And now Pragg got this small little bind here, f5, bishop d2, and they traded queens. And we reach this bishop endgame, and it's equal. The position is drawn, especially because Pragg can go bishop to c5, and Cheparinov can go bishop c5. And here's the important point to note, that after take, the position, you cannot make any improvements as such as white, because black always has the threat of creating a passer. So imagine that if you were to get your king all the way here, then e4 already is trouble. So that's the reason why it's a draw. So Pragg kept the bishops, and this is where Pragg's sort of fight for the win, this fire which he has, comes to the fore. It's move number 45 right now. So g4 he plays, bishop e7, once again avoiding the trade. King comes up, they trade, king e7, king g3. And it's not at all easy to understand how one side is going to play for how white is going to play for a win. But Pragg actually realizes that if king g7, bishop g5, now you can't trade the bishops, because if you trade, you are lost. King is too active. But he keeps the bishops, bishop h4. And you will see that he is not allowing this move king g5 very easily. It is very important actually to make sure that that doesn't come. So bishop e3, bishop c7, king f6, bishop d6. And here bishop moves away, bishop b8, bishop c7, bishop e3, bishop d6. And somehow Pragg keeps moving around. You can't take the bishop. The pawn is too strong. So this is where I think Pragg has become a monster. He keeps on creating these, is able to play these moves to tire his opponent and then induce the error. Bishop e1, bishop d8. And at this point, you may feel nothing has changed, king g7, but now he goes bishop e7, king f7, bishop d6, king f6, and bishop c7. So through moving around, he's reached this position, and the question to ask here is, can black just play his bishop away? Because look, it's a kind of a small little zugzwang now. I think this position was reached before with bishop on c7, but it wasn't like here. It was white to move, black to move, and he played bishop e3. So Pragg, through waiting and through understanding that this position is some kind of a little zugzwang for black, he finds it. And here, the key point is that after bishop c5, let's say, check, king f7, king g5. And this already starts getting very stressful. And I tried to analyze this endgame deeply. And I figured out that this is actually quite um, is a draw, and we are going to work it out. So you can go back here, bishop c5, as we just noticed, or you can even just be very active and push the pawn, and you can say, I'm confident about my position. So here, let's go take king g4, bishop c5, bishop g3, e3, king f3, king f5. Now the e pawn is a little weak, so bishop c7, bishop d4, and now comes this very cool move, bishop d6. And this is where I believe that a black player can get very nervous, because firstly, you can't move your bishop. If you go here, then I take and take on e3. So it's now black to move. What would you do here? Okay. If you were going to play king f6, just trying to hang in there, then bishop f4 wins because I take on e3. So you need to get something for this pawn. It's going. So you first push it back. This is a very key move. Take king e4 again. And now, once again, white plays this very tricky move, bishop c7. And it's your move again. What do you play here as black to play? One threat that white has is d6, d7, d8. The other is he's keeping an eye here. It's very, very tricky. And a4 is a classy move. Very nice move. Imagine that you were going to play a bishop here, then already d6 is completely winning. A4 is important. You can't go b5 here because b5 is met with bishop takes a5 and white wins. So a4 takes, and now bishop c5. Important move, threatening to come here and take this. So pawn push now, king d4, d7, and bishop e7. And after bishop takes b6, I take here, queen c5, and the king goes and hides in this corner. So this is a draw. Very, very interesting. Actually, so I feel like from my analysis, I could be wrong somewhere, but I feel that this is a draw, this position. However, Cheparinov plays f4, which is a mistake. And now Pragg is very, very alert. First, he comes back, king g4, bishop c5. But the game is not over. Check, king g6. He goes bishop h4, bishop d6. And okay, he can go bishop f2 here. I think that should be winning, because bishop c5 now loses to take d6, king f6, d7, king e7, and king f5 wins. But there could be bishop c7, and maybe Pragg didn't find a way to break through here. So he went bishop g5, bishop f8, bishop d8, bishop c5, and now d6. Good move. He's seen that he's winning here. Bishop h4, and now comes bishop d8. Very strong move. Very important to understand that pawn push here does not work out because black is fine. So bishop d8 stopping king f6 was important. And now c5. Bishop c7, king here takes, bishop b4. And we reach a key position at this moment. Pragg had to decide whether to take with the king or with the bishop. Not an easy decision. He went wrong here. But the complications are immense. So the right move here is to take with the king. And the point is very simple, actually, if you understand it later. It doesn't matter whether you take with the king or the bishop if black is going to respond with bishop takes c5 in the game, as it happened. But if he goes the right move here, so let's go bishop f4 happened in the game. Firstly, what should black play here? Black to move. So Vitiugov Cheparinov, sorry, next game I'm going to show is Vitiugov. Cheparinov takes here with the bishop, which is a mistake. King c6 is the correct move. And we're going to see why that is a draw. We'll check it out. But first, let's check the win. So it becomes very clear. King takes f4, king c6, king e4, important move. Now notice if bishop d6, take, this is a draw. And I think Pragg might have seen this, and that's why he took here with the bishop on f4. But king f4, king c6, king e4. Now you go either bishop c5 or you go king c5. Okay, if you take bishop c5, I go bishop c3, king b5, and f4, and I'm winning this position. It's winning. King c5, king d3. I forgot to ask the question. Here, actually, this is the main move. Because, look, if you play f4 here, then bishop d2, f5, and king b4. This is already a draw. But king d3 stops the black king from coming in. And after king b5, you go f4, a4, takes, king c4, and white wins. So, these were some of the lines that would have ensued after king f4, but he went bishop f4, and here Cheparinov should have gone king c6. Instead, he went bishop c5. Let's look at king c6. Now king e4, the same idea which we want to do. King takes c5, king d3, whatever we just saw. Bishop e5, a4, takes, king c4. And now you will see the pawn is still on f3, so you can't push. It's at one tempo which you lost in coming here, and here. Sorry. While if you had taken with the king, with the king, so in this position, the bishop had to move again, here, which would not have happened in the other position. So that's the key move. And by the way, king e6 variation is also nice. Take, bishop d2, king b5, f4, bishop d4. And again, this is a draw after a4, f7, a3, queen, and a2. And this is very, very interesting because here, generally this should lose if white could get the queen here in, but unfortunately he is not able to get the queen on that diagonal. So a very, very instructive line here with king e6, bishop c5, bishop d2, king b5, and in fact it's kind of forcing line, bishop a1, and then take here. So you can keep this in mind that often such positions you would discard in your calculation, but because of the unfortunate placement of the king, it's a draw. Okay, so bishop takes f4, bishop takes c5 was played, and now Pragg played bd2, bishop b6. He gains this key move, king c6, f4, bishop d8, f5, king b5. And now it was very important for white to play the move king e5. And I think white is winning here clearly. But he played king d5. It looks also natural. However, now after bishop f6, it's a draw again. King e6, bishop d4, king d6, bishop b2, king d5, bishop f6. So both sides just wait for some time. One thing, by the way, which should be completely clear to you is that after king d5, bishop f6, king e6, bishop d4, if you play f6, this is a draw. a4, b4, a3, bishop c3, a2, king e5, a1, queen takes and draw. So this doesn't work. So that's the reason why now king e4, bishop f6, king d3. Pragg tries to come back and puts his bishop here. And now Vitiugov has to, Cheparinov has to find the only move here, black to play. This is very, very tricky position actually. And here it's so difficult because it's all about calculation. The right way to think is that put your bishop in a way which is the farthest away from white king, which is going to come at you. So bishop d8 is the right move. In the game, bishop e7, which was a mistake. This was played. Now, let's have a look at first bishop d8, king e4, a4, takes, king d5, king b3. Important now, if the bishop was here, you could win a tempo with king e6. But now you have to move the bishop. And a key move here, maybe you can try and find what should black play. And this will teach you a very important basic of bishop endgames when you're defending. So the defending side should always come below the pawn. So here the right move is king c2. King e6, king here. And you might think, why is this so important? The reason is after bishop d6, king here, it's already a draw. Like you can't go bishop. If you could get bishop e7, f6, f7, you were winning. But you can't get it. Imagine you went bishop f6, I go bishop a5, you go bishop here. I anyway go bishop c3, you come here. Now your threat is bishop e5 followed by f6. I once again get king e4 and I stop it. So king going from bottom is very important. So bishop d8 is the drawing move. In case you play bishop h4, the win again is very instructive. King e4, a4 takes. And this time the problem is after king f3, king b3, king g4, bishop d8. You move your bishop away. Bishop, king h5, king d3. Now you're trying to come from below, but the point is it would only work if the white king was here and the black king was here. If you were able to get the pawn further down the road, which happens here, this one is lost because even though black could get his king here behind, bishop f8, and it's now zugzwang. This is a very typical way because the diagonal is too short here. There's only one square left, and whatever black plays, he loses. If you can't go here, if you go here, I'm going to give you a check, and it's lost. So that was the key idea here. Now that Cheparinov went bishop e7, Pragg calmly came up the board. a4 now loses. Take, king here. King e6, bishop d8, bishop e5, king c4, and now bishop d6. He's just short by one tempo. Bishop e7, bishop here, f6, bishop here, f7, bishop here, and now king f5 should do the trick because king g6 is coming up and there's no way to stop the pawn from going in. So bishop g5 played, king d5, bishop h4, king e6. And now I love what Pragg does. First bishop f6. This time taking does not work because I think you are. And now under no circumstances do you play king e5. That would lead to our drawn line. Remember, take f6 here, 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 here. Draw. What you have to do is play bishop what you have to do here is just play king e6, and then the same line doesn't work. F7, a3, f8, queen, a2, and queen f6, and wins, right? Okay, so bishop d2 was played, bishop e7, now stopping the king from coming ahead. F7 also threatened, so f6 also threatened, bishop a3. And now Pragg plays f6. And the difference is that after I take a4, b4, you don't have this pawn coming ahead and this king winning the pawn. Even if you come king c4, I go king e6, king b3, b5, take b6. And you are just in time and win the game. So very nice game by Pragg. The game lasted for a total of 114 moves here. F6 was the last move. And this just goes to show Pragg's resilience, the amount of fighting spirit that this youngster has is just phenomenal. Let's quickly go to the game against Vitugo finally, because I think I just wanted to show you, maybe not in as much depth as this one, but also another show of Pragg's fighting spirit. He's playing with the white pieces against Nikita Vitugo, who's 2719, very strong player. And Pragg plays his favorite Italian, Bishop g5. Pragg has almost done a PhD in this line. He played Queen e7 with Caruana. G5 was played by Vitiugov. And this same move was played by Vidit against Pragg. Vidit played Bishop g4 at Tata Steel Chess India Rapid. So Vitiugov clearly came prepared. Pragg had gone in that game h3. Here he goes king h1. Of course, as a top player, you have to be on top of your preparation. You can never be like, oh, I will prepare some things later. No, everyone's looking at your games. They want to beat you. So you have to be on top of things. b4, castles, h3, a4, rook e8, queen to c2. And what I absolutely loved is one idea, which I want to show you here. Rook b1, b5, rook takes. He's putting pressure here. c6, he goes back, and king g7. And now, what should white play in this position? Black's plan, if left to his own devices, would be knight e6, then putting the knight on f4, later even trying for d5 break. But Pragg was very quick to understand the crux of the matter here. He plays d4. Beautiful move. Beautiful move. And the point here is, after ed, to play this move bishop d3. So cool, right? And if you take here, and bishop d3 just defends this pawn. If you take here, I take with the queen, and this opens up this diagonal, which is a big problem. He played the move knight e6, and what was the move that Pragg played here? Again, a classy move. e5, striking in the center. And okay, you can't take here, takes knight e5. This is hanging, this is attacked. So he went knight h5, but after take, pawn takes, he took the bishop. He can't take the pawn because of b7 hanging. Again, shows how useful the move was. Rook b1, knight d8, knight c4. Maybe knight e4 was better, but knight c4 was played. He goes back, g4. It's all very complex, cd, and very important to take here to shut down this bishop so that a check is not fatal. b4, and here was a very nice move, knight b5. In fact, Pragg would have definitely thought about this move because it attacks the bishop. But I think what he might not have liked is, this is hanging. Then he would have seen knight h4, because if you take here, trouble with queen g6. So g5, check is very important. And I believe somewhere here, Pragg, rook f7, d7 is the winning move. Maybe Pragg just didn't calculate it as deeply, and he went here knight h2, attacking the queen. Vitiugov had to play queen g3, and his position was fine, but he went queen d7. Pragg traded, knight came up, knight b5, rook f1, knight f1, and after takes, knight d6. This position which we reached, I felt personally not at all easy to win, and in fact it wasn't. I think Pragg, again, his attitude of just keep the game going, that is his point. It's not like I'm in a hurry to win, and that's a very, very important quality to have. You just make one move at a time, one plan at a time, no hurry, and that is helping him beat these great players in such positions. And it's making him like somewhat like a little Magnus there. Vitugo pushes his pawns, but that creates some weaknesses. Improves his knight here, goes back. knight d6, and now suddenly, black is not well positioned. He went king f5, but rook a5. Knight went back and rook a6, cutting the king off. Knight e3 check. Uh, sorry, if he had gone king f5, this would have happened. Maybe this was the way to play, but he went knight f5, rook a5, king e4, check, king here, and after a check, he resigned because king g5, there is king e6, knight e3, knight f5 coming in, white wins. And if you go king g7, there's rook a7 with the idea of rook takes f7 and king e5 and also king e6. Vitiugov resigned here, and with this, Pragg managed to win 2 games through his sheer persistence in the endgames. Then he drew 2 more games. Until now, he has drawn against Alexienko and Bakro, and he is on 3 out of 4. Well, wishing Pragg the best. He's going to play a few more games, and hopefully he manages to climb up the rating ladder. And about 2750 are Gukesh and Anand for India, and maybe Pragg is also moving in that direction. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is Sagar Shah signing off. Bye bye.